The first time someone tells you the truth about your own life, it doesn't arrive as truth. It comes as a whisper. From a child. In a place too polished for whispers. I was standing under the chandeliers of Harrow and Vance on Fifth Avenue. 42nd anniversary. A sapphire ring resting in dark velvet. My pen already uncapped. $240,000. 3 seconds from a signature. That's when I felt the small tug on my sleeve. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Brown skin. Steady eyes. A mop bucket still waiting behind the curtain where her mother worked. "Sir," she said. "That ring isn't real." I almost laughed. I almost waved her off. I almost did what every man my age has been trained to do. Trust the experts. Trust the suit. Trust the world I built. I'm grateful I didn't. Because in the next 20 minutes, that quiet child was going to show me something about my wife of 42 years that I would have given everything not to know. And the ring? The ring was the smallest lie in that room. The strange thing about being 71 years old is that you stop noticing when people stop telling you the truth. It happens slowly. A man builds a company. The company becomes a name. The name becomes a door that opens before he touches it. People start agreeing with him in restaurants. Then in boardrooms. Then in his own kitchen. By the time he is old enough to know better, the silence around him sounds like respect, and he has forgotten that respect and fear make the same shape with the mouth. I had built $300 million worth of forgetting. So when the girl tugged my sleeve, my first reaction wasn't curiosity. It was irritation. The kind of irritation a man my age learns to disguise as patience. I looked down at her and I felt the muscles around my mouth get ready to do the thing they always do. Smile politely. Deflect. Return to the adult business of spending $240,000 on a stone for a woman who, in 3 days, would turn 70 and pretend to be surprised. But something stopped me. I'm still not sure what. Maybe it was her stillness. Children that age fidget. They look at their feet. They look at the door their mother walked through. This child did none of those things. She held my eyes the way my old foreman used to hold them on the 3rd floor of a building in Newark in 1974, when he had to tell me that the steel we had ordered was wrong and the deadline didn't care. That kind of look has nothing to do with age. "What did you say?" I asked her. Quieter than I meant to. "That ring isn't real, sir. The blue stone. It's not what they're telling you." I glanced up. The salesman was still smiling. Charles. Silver hair, French cuffs, the easy bearing of a man who had sold yachts before he sold stones. He hadn't hurt her. Or he was pretending he hadn't. "Sweetheart," I said, the way old men say things to children when they want to be kind and dismissive at the same time, "this is one of the oldest jewelry houses in the country. They have certificates. They have experts. They have insurance that would make your eyes water." She didn't blink. "My uncle cuts stones in Newark," she said. "I sit with him on Saturdays. He showed me how to see inside them with the light. The light in that ring is wrong. Newark. The word hit me sideways. That's where I started. That's where I poured my first slab of concrete, in the rain, with a borrowed mixer and a partner who would later become my brother-in-law and then, somewhere along the way, become my wife's brother instead of mine. Funny how a single word can open a door. "Show me," I heard myself say. Charles took one step forward. Just one. Smooth as a cat on carpet. "Mr. Halverson, perhaps the young lady could wait outside while she stays." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. A man learns, after 40 years of running rooms, that the quietest sentence is the loudest one. Charles's smile stayed exactly where it was, but something behind it moved an inch to the left. The girl reached up, she had to reach, and took the ring from the velvet with 2 fingers, the way her uncle must have taught her. She walked it 3 steps to the side, to the small lamp the appraisers use, the one with the cold white bulb that doesn't lie. She tilted the stone. Once. Twice. A small turn of the wrist that I had seen 1,000 times on construction sites, the way a man checks a weld before he trusts his weight to it. "See that?" she whispered, holding it up so only I could see. "Real sapphire has tiny lines inside. Like silk. My uncle calls it silk. This one is too clean. And the color is the same all the way through. Real ones have zones. The light pools different in the corners." I looked. 40 years of reading blueprints, reading invoices, reading the small print on contracts that other men assumed I wouldn't read. I had trained my eyes on small things for so long I had forgotten I could still use them. She was right. The stone was beautiful. Beautiful the way a movie set is beautiful. Beautiful for the camera. Beautiful for the man who doesn't look twice. I didn't say anything for a long moment. I just stood there, an old man in a $5,000 suit, holding a fake sapphire that had been chosen specifically for me by people who had decided, somewhere in a back room I would never see, that I was the kind of customer who would not look twice. And then a colder thought arrived. Slow. The way cold always arrives in old buildings. Through the floor first. If they had decided that about me here, in this store, today, who else had decided that about me? For how long? Charles cleared his throat. Soft. Professional. The sound of a man preparing the next sentence of a script he had run before. But I was no longer in his store. I was somewhere further back. I was in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning 2 months ago, watching my wife slide a piece of paper across the granite. "Just a small thing, darling. Just sign here." I was in my study last spring, the lawyer's voice on speaker, saying something about a trust amendment that Margaret already approved on your behalf. I was at a dinner in March, watching my son-in-law not quite meet my eyes when I asked him about the Tampa property. A man's life doesn't unravel all at once. It unravels in 100 small moments he was too busy to look at twice. I looked down at the girl. She was watching me with that same steady patience. Like she had already seen the next part of the conversation, and was waiting for me to catch up. "What's your name?" I asked her. "Imani." "Imani," I said. "How old are you?" 10. I nodded slowly. I handed the ring back to her, not to Charles. A small thing. But Charles saw it. His jaw moved a fraction. "Imani," I said, "I need you to do me one more favor." She waited. "I need you to tell me everything you've heard in this store in the last hour. Because something was telling me, in the slow cold way old buildings tell you the truth, that the ring was not the beginning of the story. The ring was the end of it." She didn't answer right away. She looked once toward the curtain where her mother had gone. Then she looked at Charles. Then she looked back at me, and I understood the calculation she was running behind those steady eyes. Her mother cleaned this store. Her mother needed this job. And a 10-year-old girl in Manhattan in 2026 already knows what happens to brown women who cause trouble for rich white men in rooms with chandeliers. I knelt down. My knees made the sound knees make at 71. A small protest. A reminder. "Imani," I said. "Whatever you tell me, your mother keeps her job. You have my word. And my word, in this city, still means something. Look at me." She looked. "It means something," I said again. She nodded once. Small. Almost invisible. The way men nod when they sign contracts they intend to keep. "There's a back room," she said. "Behind the curtain. My mom cleans it after the store closes, but sometimes I go in there during the day when she's working in the front. There's a desk. There's a phone. The man with the silver hair was in there about an hour before you came in. Charles." I didn't look at him. "He was on the phone with a woman," she said. "He called her Mrs. H. He said the stone was ready. He said her husband never looks at certificates. He said by the time anyone notices, it won't matter, because the policy will already be in her name. The chandelier above me made a small sound. Probably nothing. Probably my own ears. Imani, I said carefully, did the woman on the phone have a name? He called her Margaret one time. He apologized after. He said it was a slip. I want you to understand something. I want you to understand it the way I understood it in that moment, standing in a jewelry store on Fifth Avenue with my knees aching and my pen still uncapped in my pocket. A man can know a thing and not know it. A man can carry a suspicion in his chest for years and call it indigestion. A man can watch his wife of 42 years stop laughing at his jokes around year 38, stop reaching for his hand in the car around year 40, start taking phone calls in the garden around year 41, and tell himself it's just what marriage looks like when you get old. Comfortable. That's the word men my age use for it. Comfortable. Comfortable is the word a man uses when he doesn't want to use the right one. I stood up slowly. The store felt very far away. The chandeliers, the glass cases, the soft music designed to make you spend money you don't need to spend. All of it had moved one step back, like a movie set being struck while the actor was still in the scene. Charles, I said. Mr. Halverson. His voice was perfect. Polished smooth by years of practice. I'm sure there's been some sort of misunderstanding. The young lady is clearly, Charles. Stop talking. He stopped. I'm going to ask you one question, I said. And I'm going to ask it once. The answer determines whether you spend the rest of your career selling sapphires on Fifth Avenue or whether you spend it explaining to a federal prosecutor why your name appears on a recording in a child's pocket. Do you understand me? His face didn't change. But the color underneath it did. I had seen that exact shade once before, on a contractor in 1987 who had been double billing me for 3 years. The body knows before the face does. Where, I said, is the real ring? He didn't answer for a long second. And in that second I watched him do the math every man does at the moment his life forks. The math of how much do they actually know, how much can I still save, who do I betray first? In the vault, he said finally. Downstairs. It's been there for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I repeated. Mrs. Halverson selected it herself. In February. She paid for it separately. The piece you were going to sign for today was, a duplicate. The original is registered under a different name. Whose name? He swallowed. Her brother's. Her brother. Raymond. The man I had taught how to read a balance sheet in 1979 over coffee in a diner in Queens, because his sister had asked me to give him a chance, because she loved him, because she said he just needed someone to believe in him. The man who had been managing my offshore trust for 6 years. I felt something happen in my chest. Not pain. The opposite of pain. A strange settling. Like a building finding its footing after a tremor. I have been told, by men who study these things, that the human body releases a specific chemical when betrayal becomes undeniable. It is not adrenaline. It is older than adrenaline. It is the chemistry of the moment a man stops being prey and becomes something else. I was 71 years old. I had given that woman 42 years, 2 children, a house in Greenwich, a beach house in Nantucket, a brownstone in the city, and a name she had been quietly transferring out of my reach for at least the last 3. And a 10-year-old girl named Imani, whose mother mopped this floor at night, had just handed me back my own life. I looked down at her. She was still standing there with the fake sapphire in her hand, holding it carefully, the way you hold something that might still bite even after it's dead. Imani, I said. I want you to put that ring back in the box. And I want you to come with me. We're going to make one phone call. And then I'm going to buy you and your mother lunch at any restaurant in this city you want. She thought about it. Genuinely thought about it. There's a diner on 47th, she said. My mom likes their pancakes. I almost laughed. The first real laugh in I don't know how long. Pancakes, I said. Pancakes will do just fine. I took out my phone. I dialed a number I hadn't dialed in 11 years. A man named David Marsh. Federal prosecutor when I knew him. Private practice now. The kind of lawyer who answers his own phone on a Saturday because he remembers who pulled him out of a bad spot in 1998. He picked up on the third ring. "Henry," he said. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you." I stopped. "David," I said. "What does that mean?" There was a pause on the other end. The kind of pause that costs money. The kind of pause that comes from a man who has been carrying something for a while and is now deciding whether to set it down. "It means," he said carefully, "that I think we need to have a conversation that should have happened about 18 months ago. Where are you right now?" I looked around the store. At Charles, who was very still. At Imani, who was watching me with eyes that had seen more in 10 years than some men see in 70. "I'm on Fifth Avenue," I said. "And I think I just found out I've been the last person in my own life to know what's happening in it." "Stay there," David said. "I'm 12 minutes away. Don't sign anything. Don't say anything to Margaret. And Henry, yes. Whoever just told you. Whoever it was. Keep them close. Because in about 3 hours you're going to need a witness. And witnesses who can't be bought are harder to find than sapphires." I hung up. I looked at Imani. "How do you feel about helping an old man for the rest of the afternoon?" She tilted her head, considering. The same way she had tilted the stone under the cold lamp. "Will there really be pancakes after?" "There will really be pancakes after." "Okay then." And just like that, the second act of my life began in a jewelry store on Fifth Avenue, with a 10-year-old girl who had decided to trust me. Which, I was starting to understand, was a heavier thing to carry than $300 million had ever been. David Marsh arrived in 11 minutes, not 12. He had always been faster than he promised. That was one of the reasons I had trusted him in 1998 and one of the reasons I still trusted him now. He came through the glass doors of Harrow and Vance the way he always came into a room. Without looking around first. A man who didn't need to know where the exits were because he had stopped being afraid of rooms a long time ago. Gray suit. No tie. The kind of leather briefcase that men my age recognize as money but men Charles's age mistake for old. He saw me. He saw Imani. He saw Charles standing very still by the display case. And in about 3 seconds his face did something I had never seen it do in 28 years of knowing him. It went soft. Just for a moment. Around the eyes. The way a man's face goes soft when he sees something he has been preparing to say out loud and realizes he won't have to. "Henry," he said quietly. "David." He looked down at Imani. He didn't kneel. He didn't do the voice adults do when they talk to children, the bright fake voice that children can smell from 100 feet away. He just looked at her, level, the way he had looked at me in his office in 1998 when I was the one in the bad spot. "Young lady," he said. "I understand you're the reason we're all standing here right now." She didn't answer. She looked at me first. I nodded. "Yes, sir," she said. "Then I work for you today, too. Same as I work for him. You understand me?" She thought about that. Then she nodded once. That same small nod. The contract nod. David turned to Charles. The softness went out of his face. "You," he said. "Sit down over there. Don't touch your phone. Don't touch the desk phone. Don't touch anything. If you need to use the bathroom, you ask me first. Are we clear?" Charles sat down. David pulled out his own phone, dialed 3 numbers, said 5 words I didn't quite catch, and put it away again. Then he looked at me. "All right," he said. "Walk." He took my elbow, the way old friends do when they want to say something without anyone reading their lips, and steered me toward the front window of the store, away from Charles, away from Imani, into the small bright space where the diamonds in the window caught the afternoon sun and threw it back across the marble floor in little broken pieces. "Henry," he said. "I need to tell you some things very quickly, and I need you not to react with your face. Can you do that for me?" "I can do that." 18 months ago, your wife's brother retained a tax attorney in the Caymans. 6 months after that, an asset protection firm in Delaware. 4 months after that, a divorce attorney in Connecticut. The divorce attorney has not yet been instructed to file. He has been instructed to prepare. There is a difference. The difference is timing. I kept my face still. I had a lifetime of practice. 3 weeks ago, he continued, your medical records were requested by a firm I do not recognize. The request was authorized by a power of attorney you signed in 2019. Do you remember signing a medical power of attorney in 2019? I did. Margaret had been worried about a small procedure I was having. A hernia. Nothing. Just in case, darling. Just in case. I see your face, David said. Keep it still. I haven't gotten to the hard part yet. There's a hard part. There is always a hard part, Henry. 2 days ago, a life insurance application was submitted on your behalf to a carrier in Bermuda. $12 million policy. Beneficiary, your wife. Signed, allegedly, by you. The signature is good. It's very good. It's so good that if I hadn't been watching for it, I would have believed it myself. I looked out the window. A woman walked by on the sidewalk, holding a small child by the hand, both of them laughing about something I would never hear. David, I said. Why have you been watching for it? He didn't answer right away. He was choosing his words. David always chose his words the way other men chose stocks. Because 11 months ago, he said, your son called me. I turned my head. Slowly. Just enough. My son. Michael. He came to my office. He said his mother had asked him to sign something, and he didn't like the way she asked. He didn't know what it was. He hadn't signed it. He wanted to know if he should. I told him not to. I told him to go home and forget the conversation and to call me again only if something else happened that made him uncomfortable. He called me again 4 months later. And then again 2 months ago. Why didn't he call me? David's face went soft again. Just for a second. Henry. Think about that question. Think about what it means that your son called your lawyer instead of his father. I thought about it. I thought about the last time Michael had come to dinner. February. He had sat across from me at the long table in the dining room while Margaret poured wine. He had asked me, twice, how I was feeling. The second time, his voice had been careful in a way I had not noticed at the time. How are you feeling, Dad? Really? And I had laughed and said something about my golf swing, and Margaret had refilled his glass, and the moment had passed. The moment had passed because I had let it pass. Because I had spent 40 years building a man who did not let his son ask him careful questions about how he was feeling. I had built that man so carefully. I had built him out of 14-hour days and missed birthdays and the conviction that providing was the same as loving. I had built him the way I had built everything else. With concrete. With certainty. With the absolute confidence that the structure I was raising would shelter the people inside it. And my son had not been able to walk through the front door of that structure to tell me that his mother was preparing to bury me in it. Henry, David said quietly. Are you still with me? I'm still with you. There's more. But the more can wait an hour. Right now, we have a window. Margaret is at the house in Greenwich. She is expecting you home at 6 with a sapphire ring. She is not expecting you home at 4 with a lawyer and a witness. Do you understand what I'm telling you? You want to move before she knows. I want to move before her brother knows. Her brother is the one who will move money. She will move emotions. Different muscles. Different timelines. I looked back across the store. Imani was sitting on the small velvet bench by the curtain. Her feet didn't quite touch the floor. She had taken a small notebook out of somewhere, and she was drawing something in it with a pencil that looked like it had been sharpened with a kitchen knife. She wasn't looking at us. But I could feel her listening. The way she had listened in the back room. The way she would, I suspected, listen for the rest of her life, because some people are built to hear what the rest of us are too tired to. David, I said. There's a child in this story. I know. She doesn't get hurt by this. Not now. Not 10 years from now. Not when somebody tries to figure out who told me. Do you understand me? I understand you. Her mother works in this store. Her mother does not lose this job. Her mother gets a better job. Today. By the end of the day. Henry, today, David. He looked at me for a long moment. And then he did something he had not done in 28 years of knowing me. He smiled. A small, tired, real smile. There he is, he said. There who is? The man I met in 1998. I was starting to wonder if he was still in there. I didn't answer that. I didn't know how to answer it. He clapped me once on the shoulder, gentle, the way men our age clap each other when there aren't words for the thing happening between them, and he walked back across the marble floor toward Charles, who was sitting very still and had gone the color of old paper. I stayed by the window for another moment. If you've made it this far with me, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and walk with us, day by day. Because I'll tell you something. I've been on this earth 71 years, and the strangest thing about getting old is not the body. It's not the knees, it's not the back, it's not the slow soft surrender of the things you used to do without thinking. The strangest thing is realizing how much of your life happened while you were too busy to look at it. We tell ourselves we're providing. We tell ourselves we're protecting. We tell ourselves the work is the love. And one day a child tugs your sleeve in a jewelry store and you realize you don't actually know the woman sitting across from you at dinner. You knew her in 1984. You knew her in 1991. You haven't really looked at her since 2003. If any of that lands for you, stay with me. Because the next part of this story is the part one have been turning over in my hands for a long time, and I want to tell it right. I walked back across the store. Imani looked up from her notebook. Are we still getting pancakes, she said. We are still getting pancakes, I said. But first, you and I are going to take a short ride to Greenwich. And I am going to ask you to do one more thing for me. The hardest thing I have ever asked anyone to do. And after that, I promise you, you will never have to do anything hard for me again. She closed the notebook. She put the pencil in her pocket. Okay, she said. Just that. Okay. A 10-year-old girl. Okay. I have signed contracts worth $100 million and felt less than I felt standing there looking at that small steady face. David came back with his briefcase. Charles was being walked out a side door by two men who had appeared from somewhere I had not seen. The afternoon sun was hitting the chandeliers and breaking apart on the marble, and the whole scene looked, for one strange suspended second, like a painting of a life I used to think I was living. Let's go home, Henry, David said. Home. That word. I would have to learn what that word meant now. Starting over. At 71. I held the door open for Imani. She walked through it like she walked through everything. Carefully. Watching the corners. Watching the light. And we stepped out onto Fifth Avenue, into the kind of bright cold afternoon that New York gives you maybe 12 times a year, the kind of afternoon where the city looks washed clean, and I had the strangest thought. For 42 years I had believed my wife loved me. For 10 minutes, a child I had never met had told me the truth. The math of that was going to take me the rest of my life to work out. The car was waiting at the curb. Black sedan, the way they always are. My driver Anthony had been with me for 16 years. He opened the back door without speaking, but his eyes moved once, very fast, from me to David to Imani and back to me. A question, asked without being asked. I shook my head, small. Later. He nodded. Closed the door. The three of us sat in the back. David on the jump seat, his briefcase across his knees. Imani in the middle, her feet still not quite touching the floor mat. Me by the window, watching Fifth Avenue slide past, watching a city I had lived in for 46 years suddenly look like a place I had been visiting. I want to tell you something about a long marriage. When you have been married to a woman for 42 years, she is not a person anymore. Not the way she was at 28. Not the way she was at the wedding, in that small dress her mother had altered 3 times, laughing in the rain outside the church in Bay Ridge because the photographer had forgotten the umbrellas. By year 42 she is a country. She is the language you speak in your own house. She is the shape of the bed and the side of the closet and the way the coffee gets made and the small running joke about the neighbor's dog. She is the geography of your life. You don't see her anymore the way you see other people. You see her the way a fish sees water. And that is the problem. Because when the water turns, you are the last one to know. David was talking. Quietly. Steadily. The way he had talked to me in 1998 in his office on Park Avenue, when he had walked me through what was about to happen to me and what we were going to do about it. He had a yellow legal pad on his briefcase and he was writing on it in small careful letters as he talked, and Imani was watching him write, fascinated, the way children are fascinated by adults who do not perform for them. Henry, he said. Listen to me. We are going to do 4 things in the next 3 hours. 1. We are going to your house. You are going to walk in normally. You are going to greet your wife normally. You are going to tell her the ring was not ready, that they need another day for the resizing. She will believe you because she has spent the last 3 years believing you do not notice things. All right. 2. While you are doing that, I am going to be in your study. With Imani. With my associate, who is meeting us there. We are going to walk through every document in your safe. Every one. I have a list. I know what should be there. I want to see what is actually there. All right. 3. At some point this evening, Margaret will excuse herself to make a phone call. She will call her brother. Or her brother will call her. The carrier in Bermuda processes applications on a 48-hour window. They have approximately 31 hours left before that policy goes active. They will be nervous. Nervous people use phones. And 4. David looked up from his legal pad. For the first time since the jewelry store, he looked tired. 4, he said. You decide. Tonight. What you want. What I want. Henry. There are 3 ways this ends. The first way, we go to the police tomorrow morning, we hand them everything, and your wife of 42 years and her brother spend the next several years in courtrooms and possibly in prison. The second way, we go to a different set of lawyers, we structure a settlement that protects you and your son and your assets, and Margaret walks away with a number we negotiate. Not 0. But not what she was reaching for. The third way, he paused. He looked at Imani for a second, then back at me. The third way is that you do nothing. You confront her. You let her cry. You let her tell you it was a misunderstanding, that her brother was acting alone, that she loves you, that 42 years means something. And you go on. You live in that house with that woman until one of you dies. And you spend whatever time you have left wondering, every morning, what is in your coffee. He set the pen down. I am not telling you which one to choose, he said. I am telling you those are the 3 doors. I am telling you that you have to walk through one of them by tomorrow morning. And I am telling you, Henry, and this part 1 am telling you as your friend, not your lawyer, that the door you choose will be the last big decision you make in this life. So choose carefully. The car was quiet. Imani had stopped watching the pen. She was looking at me now. Steady. The way she had looked at me in the store. Mister, she said. Henry, I said. You can call me Henry. Mr. Henry. Can I say something? David and I both looked at her. David's eyebrows went up 1/4 of an inch. The small involuntary movement of a man who has just remembered that the 10-year-old in the car is a witness, and that witnesses should not be coached, and that whatever this child is about to say is going to matter. You can say anything you want, Imani. She thought about it for a moment. She was choosing her words too. Maybe 10-year-olds and lawyers are not so different, when the stakes get high enough. My grandma, she said, raised me and my mom both. My mom was 16 when she had me. My grandma worked nights cleaning offices on Wall Street. She came home at 6 in the morning and she made us breakfast and then she slept for 4 hours and then she went back. She did that for 9 years. Until she died. I didn't say anything. Neither did David. My grandma told me one time, Imani said, that the hardest thing in the world is not knowing somebody is bad. The hardest thing in the world is knowing somebody is bad and still loving them. She said that's the test. She said most people fail it. She looked down at her hands. She said the ones who pass it are the ones who can do the hard thing anyway. Not because they don't love the person. Because they do. The car was very quiet now. Even Anthony, up front, had gone still in that specific way drivers go still when they are pretending not to listen. I don't know which door you should pick, Mr. Henry, she said. I'm 10. But my grandma said the people who pick the easy door are the people who don't really love anybody. They just love how the person makes them feel. That's different. She looked up. That's what she said. I want to be honest with you. I have negotiated with senators. I have stared down union bosses in the back of trucks in the Bronx in 1981. I have sat across from a man in Beijing in 1996 who had a folder on his desk containing every mistake I had made in the previous decade, and I had not flinched. I had built a life on not flinching. On being the man in the room who could absorb the hardest sentence without his face moving. I turned my face to the window. The buildings were thinning. The Bruckner was behind us. We were starting the slow climb up the Hutchinson toward Greenwich, toward a house with a long gravel driveway and a woman waiting in a cream-colored kitchen with the lights low. I turned my face to the window because I did not want a 10-year-old child to see what a grown man's face does when a grown man hears the truth out loud for the first time in 3 years. David, quietly, handed me his handkerchief. I took it. I did not use it. I just held it. Folded. In my hand. The way you hold something somebody gave you because they did not know what else to give. After a long minute I said, Imani. Your grandmother sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She was. What was her name? Beatrice. Beatrice Williams. Everybody called her Miss B. Miss B. I said it slowly. I tried to put it somewhere it would stay. Imani. I am going to remember Miss B for the rest of my life. Do you understand what I am telling you? She thought about it. You mean you're going to do something? I mean I am going to do something. She nodded once. She turned and looked out her own window. And we rode in silence the rest of the way up the Hutchinson, 3 people in a black car, carrying a thing between us that none of us had wanted but all of us were now responsible for. We turned off the parkway at exit 31. We took the long road past the country club, past the stone walls, past the houses that sit back from the road behind their hedges the way certain women sit back from a conversation, watching. The light was starting to go gold. The trees were just at that point in October where they have decided to burn but have not yet decided when. Anthony slowed at the gate. The gate that I had installed in 2009. The gate that had a code that Margaret had insisted we changed 3 times in the last 8 months. For security, darling. You hear such terrible things. The gate opened. The gravel crunched under the tires the way it had crunched under the tires every day for 16 years. A sound I had loved. A sound that had meant home. The house came into view at the top of the rise. Cream stone, slate roof, the soft yellow lamps in the front windows already lit against the early dusk. A beautiful house. A house that had been on the cover of a magazine. A house that Margaret had decorated room by room over the course of 20 years with the slow careful taste of a woman who knew exactly what she was building. I just hadn't known what she was building. David put his hand on my arm. Briefly. The way old friends do. Henry, he said. Whatever happens in the next hour. Remember. You are not the man she thinks she is meeting at the door. No, I said. I am not. I looked at Imani one more time. She was watching the house come closer with the same level patience she had watched everything else. A child who had been raised by a woman named Beatrice Williams who cleaned offices on Wall Street and died too young and who, somehow, through that small steady girl, was about to walk into my house with me. I opened the door before Anthony could come around. The cold air hit my face. And I walked up the front steps of my own home for what I already knew, in the part of a man that knows these things before the rest of him catches up, would be the last time as the man I had been when I left it that morning. Margaret was in the kitchen. I could tell before I saw her, the way you can tell anything in a house you have lived in for 16 years. The light was wrong in a specific way. The light over the island was on, but the light over the breakfast nook was off, which meant she was standing, not sitting. She was standing at the island, which meant she had a glass of wine, which meant she was waiting. I heard her voice before I saw her. Darling, is that you? I thought you'd be later. Tell me you got it. I stepped into the kitchen. David and Imani had peeled off in the foyer. David was going to my study, the way we had agreed. Imani was going with him, which I did not love, but David had been clear. I do not leave a child alone in a house where things are about to happen. Not even for 10 minutes. She stays with me. And he had been right. Margaret turned when she heard my shoes on the floor. I want to describe her to you. Not the way a husband describes a wife. The way a man describes a country he is about to leave. 70 years old in 3 days. White hair, cut to the jaw, the kind of cut that costs $400 in the city and looks like it cost nothing. A cream cashmere sweater. Gray slacks. Small pearl earrings that her mother had worn at our wedding. The faint, expensive smell of the perfume she had been wearing since 1994, the one I had bought her in Paris on a trip we took for our 12th anniversary, the one she had switched to permanently after that and never told me why. Maybe because she had loved that trip. Maybe because I had not asked enough questions about why she loved it. Beautiful. Even at 70. Maybe especially at 70. There is a kind of beauty that arrives late in certain women, the way certain wines arrive late. The bones come forward. The performance falls away. What is left is what was always there underneath, and in some women what is there is grace, and in some women what is there is something else. I had been telling myself, for 42 years, that what was there was grace. She smiled when she saw me. The same smile. The same one from the photograph on the mantel, taken in 1989, the two of us on the deck of a boat in Newport, Michael 3 years old between us, all of us squinting into the sun. You're empty-handed, she said. Light. Teasing. They needed another day, I said. The setting wasn't quite right. Charles said he'd messenger it up tomorrow afternoon. Charles. She said the name the way you say the name of an old reliable friend. Bless him. I told you he'd take care of us. He took care of us, I said. Yes. She walked around the island toward me. Slowly. The way she always walked toward me in this kitchen. She put one hand on my chest, the way she had been putting one hand on my chest in this kitchen for 16 years, and she tilted her face up, and she kissed me. A short kiss. The kiss of a long marriage. The kiss that means welcome home. I kissed her back. I want you to understand why I kissed her back. I kissed her back because if I had not kissed her back, she would have known. Not all of it. But enough. And David had been clear. You walk in normally. You greet her normally. And because my hands were not yet steady enough to hold the alternative. But also. I kissed her back because some part of me, some old stupid hopeful part of me that I had thought I had killed in the back of the sedan on the Hutchinson Parkway, was still hoping that Imani had been wrong. That Charles had been lying. That David had been mistaken. That the 18 months of preparation in the Caymans and Delaware and Connecticut had been some kind of accounting strategy one did not understand, that the $12 million policy in Bermuda had been a clerical error, that my son had called my lawyer because he was overprotective and not because he was afraid. I kissed her back because a man does not stop loving his wife in an afternoon. A man stops loving his wife the way a man stops being young. Slowly. Over years. And then all at once, in a moment he does not get to choose. She stepped back. She looked at my face. And something moved, very slightly, behind her eyes. "Henry," she said. "You look tired." It was a long afternoon. Did something happen at the store? Charles was Charles. She laughed. A small, light laugh. The laugh I had loved in 1984. The laugh that had not changed. "Pour yourself a drink, darling. Sit down. Tell me about your day." I poured myself a scotch. 2 fingers. From the bottle on the sideboard that had been there since Christmas. I sat down at the breakfast nook. She sat across from me, the way she had sat across from me 10,000 times in this house, her wine glass between her hands. And I want to tell you what happened in the next 11 minutes, because the next 11 minutes were the strangest 11 minutes of my life. We had a conversation. A normal conversation. She asked about the traffic on the FDR. I told her about the traffic on the FDR. She told me about her morning, the call with her decorator about the curtains in the guest room, the lunch with her friend Patricia who was getting divorced for the 2nd time and being very brave about it. I asked about Michael. She said Michael had called, he was bringing Sarah and the kids on Sunday, he sounded good. She asked if I wanted her to heat up the soup she had made or if we should call the place in town. I said the soup would be fine. A normal conversation. The kind of conversation that 2 people who have been married for 42 years have over a glass of wine in their cream-colored kitchen at the end of a Tuesday in October. And the whole time. The whole time. I was watching her face. I was watching her face the way Imani had watched the sapphire under the cold lamp. Looking for the wrong color. Looking for the place where the light pooled different in the corners. Looking for the silk that should have been there and was not. And I was finding it. I was finding it everywhere. The way her eyes flicked, very fast, to my phone when it buzzed on the table. The way her shoulders relaxed when I did not pick it up. The way she asked about Michael with exactly the right amount of warmth and not 1 degree more. The way she lifted her wine glass with her left hand instead of her right, which she had started doing about 2 years ago, and which I had assumed was her shoulder, which she had said was bothering her, and which I now understood might have been her shoulder or might have been the small precise practice of a woman remembering not to display the bracelet on her right wrist, the bracelet that her brother had bought her, the bracelet I had never asked about. 42 years. I had not been looking at her for 42 years. I had been looking at the photograph on the mantel from 1989. I had been looking at the woman in the rain outside the church in Bay Ridge in 1984. I had been looking at the country, and the country had been slowly, year by year, changing its borders while I was not looking, and now I was sitting across from a place I no longer recognized, and the place was still pouring me wine and asking me about the traffic on the FDR. The phone buzzed again. David. A single word. Now. I stood up. "I'm going to go wash my hands," I said. "I'll be right back." "All right, darling." I walked out of the kitchen. Down the long hallway. Past the photograph from 1989 on the mantel. I did not look at it. I walked to the study. I opened the door. David was sitting at my desk. My safe was open behind him. There were papers spread across the leather blotter in 3 neat piles. There was a 4th pile on the floor, smaller, separate. Imani was sitting in the leather-wing chair by the fireplace with her notebook on her knees, drawing something. She looked up when I came in. David did not look up. He was holding a single sheet of paper. He set it down. He pressed his hands together, very flat, on top of it. "Henry," he said. "Close the door." I closed the door. "Sit down." I sat down. He turned the sheet of paper around and slid it across the desk to me. I looked at it. It was a printout of an email. The header said it had been sent from Margaret's account, the account she used for the charity work, the account I had set up for her in 2011. The email had been sent 11 days ago. It was addressed to her brother Raymond. It was 4 sentences long. I read it once. I read it again. I set it down on the desk. I looked up at David. "David," I said. My voice sounded a long way away. "Is this real?" "It's real, Henry." I pulled it off the desktop machine in the corner. It was in her sent folder. She never empties her sent folder. She thinks the cleaning lady doesn't know how to use a computer. "David." "Yes. This email talks about Michael." "It does, Henry. This email talks about Michael being a problem." "It does. This email says that if Michael keeps talking to you, he needs to be handled." "Yes, Henry. My son." "Yes." I sat in the chair in my own study, in the house I had built, across from a desk I had bought at auction in 1994, holding a printout of an email in which my wife of 42 years had described our son, our only son, as a problem that needed to be handled. And I want to tell you something. Up until that moment, I had not yet decided which of David's 3 doors I was going to walk through. Up until that moment, some small part of me had still been bargaining. Some small part of me had still been hoping for door 3. The cry. The misunderstanding. The 42 years that meant something. That part of me died in that chair. It did not die with. That is the thing I want you to understand. It did not die with rage, or with shouting, or with any of the loud things that men in movies do when they find out the truth about their wives. It died quietly. The way old things die. It died the way my father had died, in a hospital bed in Queens in 1996, looking at the ceiling, having one last small thought he did not share, and then letting go. I felt it go. I felt the part of me that had been married to Margaret Halverson for 42 years let go. What was left was a man I had not been in a long time. A man from Newark. A man who had poured his first slab of concrete in the rain in 1974. A man who had once, at 26 years old, looked across a folding table at a contractor who was trying to cheat him and had said, very quietly, "You will not do that to me twice." That man stood up out of the wing chair. That man walked around the desk. That man looked at David. "David," he said. "Door 2. David closed his eyes for 1 second. Just one. Relief, maybe. Or the absence of one specific kind of sorrow. "Door 2, he said. "All right. Door 2. How long?" "To structure it cleanly." 48 hours. "To present it to her." "Tomorrow morning." "I want her sitting across from her own attorney by 10 a.m., looking at a document she cannot improve on no matter what she does." "And Raymond?" "Raymond is a separate conversation. Raymond is a criminal conversation. We do that one with a different set of lawyers and possibly a different set of agencies. But that is next week's problem. Tonight's problem is the woman in your kitchen." "All right. Henry." "Yes. You're going to have to go back in there. You're going to have to eat the soup. You're going to have to sleep in that house tonight. Can you do that?" I looked at the email on the desk. I looked at the 4 sentences my wife had written about my son. "I can do that," I said. "All right." I turned to leave the study. And then I stopped. I turned back. Imani was still in the wing chair. She had stopped drawing. She was watching me. Her notebook was closed on her lap. Her hands were folded on top of it. I walked over to the chair. I knelt down. The knees again. The small protest. I did not care. Imani, I said. Yes, Mr. Henry. You and your mother are not going home tonight. Anthony is going to drive you both to the Lowell. It is a hotel in the city. You will have a room. There will be food. There will be a bed. Tomorrow my associate will come and talk to your mother about a new job. A better one. You do not need to make any decisions tonight. You just need to sleep. Can you do that for me? She thought about it. My mom finishes work at 9. Anthony will be there at 9. She doesn't know any of this. Anthony will explain it. And David's associate will explain it again. And nobody will make her do anything she does not want to do. I promise you that. She thought about it some more. Okay, she said. Okay. I started to stand. She put her hand on my arm. Lightly. Small fingers. The first time she had touched me since the jewelry store. Mr. Henry. Yes. You did the right thing. How do you know? She looked at me with that steady level patience. The Beatrice Williams look. The look of a woman who had cleaned offices on Wall Street for 9 years and raised 2 children and died too young and had somehow, through the strange long arithmetic of a life, ended up sitting in a wing chair in my study at the age of 10. Because your face is different, she said. It was tight before. Now it's just sad. Sad is better. Sad means you let go of the thing that was hurting you. I did not have an answer for that. I stood up. I went back down the hallway. I went back into the kitchen. I sat down across from my wife of 42 years. I ate the soup she had made. I told her it was very good. I told her I loved her. I told her I loved her. Because tomorrow at 10 a.m., she was going to be sitting across from her attorney, looking at a document she could not improve on. And tonight, in this kitchen, was the last time I was ever going to lie to her. And I wanted the last lie to be a small one. A merciful one. A lie that gave her one more evening of believing she had won. She deserved that, I thought. 42 years deserved that. Even if the 42 years had been a country I had been visiting and not, as it turned out, the country I had thought I was living in. 2351 Claude Respondu, I did not sleep that night. I did not sleep that night. I want to be clear about that. I did not lie in bed pretending to sleep, the way men do in stories. I did not stare at the ceiling. I went into the guest room around 11, the small one at the end of the east hallway, the one Margaret never used because she said the morning light was wrong. I told her my back was bothering me. She made a small sympathetic sound. She said of course, darling. She kissed my forehead. She went to our bedroom and closed the door. I sat in the guest room in a chair by the window for the next 7 hours. The moon came up over the back lawn around midnight. The lawn that I had paid a man named Esteban $2,000 a month for the last 14 years to keep perfect. I looked at that lawn for a long time. I thought about how I had never once, in 14 years, walked on it barefoot. Not once. I had paid for that lawn the way a man pays for a painting. I had not lived on it. Around 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed once. A text from Anthony. They are at the hotel. Mother is sleeping. Child is reading. The child is reading. I almost laughed. Of course she is. Around 4, I got up. I walked through the house. I did not turn on the lights. I had lived in this house for 16 years and I knew where every chair was, every doorframe, every step. I walked through the dining room where we had hosted 38 Thanksgivings if you counted the years before Greenwich. I walked through the living room with the Steinway that Margaret played twice a year for guests and never when she was alone. I walked through the sunroom where Michael had broken his arm in 2003 jumping off the back of the couch. I stood in each room for a moment. Not saying goodbye. Just looking. A man does not get to say goodbye to a house. A house is not the kind of thing that listens. But a man can stand in his rooms one last time and see them clearly, maybe for the first time, and that is a kind of leaving. By 6, the light was starting. I went back to the guest room. I changed my shirt. I called David. "I'm ready," I said. "I know. I have been awake since 4 also. There is a car in your driveway." I went downstairs. Margaret was in the kitchen. This is the part of the story I have not been able to tell anyone. Not Michael. Not David. Not Imani, who I have seen many times in the years since, and who has grown into a young woman who is in her 2nd year of college now and who is going to be a doctor, and who I love in a particular quiet way that does not have a name in English. I have not been able to tell any of them about the next 4 minutes. I will try to tell you. She was making coffee. She was wearing the blue robe. The robe she had owned since 1998. The robe I had bought her at Bergdorf the year my mother died, because I had not known what else to do for her, because I had not been good at the part of marriage where you comfort someone, and a robe had seemed like a thing she could wrap around herself when I was not there, which was most of the time. She had loved that robe. She had worn it for 28 years. She was wearing it now. She turned when she heard me come in. She smiled. "You're up early," she said. "I have a meeting in the city. On a Wednesday. On a Wednesday." She held out a coffee cup. I took it. Our fingers touched. 42 years of our fingers touching. I drank from the cup. The coffee was good. She had always made very good coffee. She looked at my face for a long moment. Longer than usual. Something in her had noticed something. Some small animal radar that had not yet formed itself into a thought. "Henry," she said. "Is everything all right?" I looked at her. I looked at my wife of 42 years, in the blue robe I had bought her in 1998, holding a coffee cup, in our kitchen, at 6 in the morning, and I let myself look at her for the last time as the woman I had thought she was. "Margaret," I said. "I have always loved you. I want you to know that. Whatever happens today. I have always loved you." Her face changed. "I want you to understand." It changed in stages. The way a sky changes when a front moves through. First puzzlement. Then concern. Then, very fast, very brief, a flash of something else. Calculation. The kind a person does in 100th of a second when they realize a conversation is not the conversation they thought it was. And then, just as fast, the calculation went under, and a wife's worried expression came back over the top. But I had seen it. The flash. The thing underneath. The silk in the corner of the stone. She set down her own cup. She came around the island toward me. She put her hand on my face. "Henry," she said. Soft. "You are scaring me. What is happening?" "David is in the driveway." "David." "David Marsh. My attorney. He is going to drive me into the city. He is going to take me to his office. At 10 o'clock this morning, you will receive a phone call from a man named Walter Brennan. Walter is also an attorney. He represents you. He has been retained on your behalf as of 40 minutes ago. He is a very good attorney. I chose him myself." Her hand was still on my face. "Henry. What are you talking about?" "Walter will explain everything. He has a document. The document is fair. It is more than fair. It will allow you to live the rest of your life in significant comfort. It will not allow you to live the rest of it in this house, and it will not allow you to ever speak to Raymond again, and it will not allow you to ever, under any circumstance, contact Michael or his children. Those are the conditions. Walter will go through them with you. He will not allow you to sign anything you do not understand." She took her hand off my face. I watched her go through the stages again. Puzzlement. Concern. The flash. And this time the flash did not go back under. This time it stayed. I had been married for 42 years to a woman I did not know. And now, in my kitchen, at 6 in the morning, I was meeting her. She was not crying. That is the part one want you to understand. There were no tears. Her face went very still and very smooth, and her eyes went a color I had never seen them go in 42 years, a color like the inside of a stone, and she stepped back from me. "You went into my email," she said. Not a question. Yes. The boy. Charles. Charles is not relevant. Charles will be a problem for the district attorney, not for me. Not Charles, Henry. The girl. In the store. Mrs. Patterson called me yesterday afternoon. She said one of the maid's children was bothering you. I told her not to make a fuss. I told her you were good with children. I did not answer that. She took another step back. She looked at me, and she smiled. A small smile. The smile of a woman who is recalibrating very fast. Henry. Whatever you think you know. Margaret. Whatever you think you have. Margaret. Stop. You don't have anything, darling. You have a confused little girl and an email taken out of context and 42 years of a marriage that I have given my entire life to. You do not get to do this. You do not get to throw away 42 years because some child in a jewelry store told you a fairy tale. I looked at her. I did not feel anger. I want you to understand that. The anger had come and gone in the chair in my study at 4 in the afternoon the day before. What I felt now was something else. I felt the particular sadness of a man who has, very late, understood the shape of his own life. The sadness of a man looking at a building he built, and realizing the foundation had been wrong all along, and that the building had stood anyway, for 42 years, on nothing. It is a strange thing to admire and grieve in the same breath. But that is what I felt. I had built a marriage on nothing. And the marriage had stood. For 42 years. Because I had been good at building, and she had been good at appearing, and together we had made a structure so convincing that even I had lived inside it. Margaret, I said. Henry. Please. Walter will be calling at 10. Please be dressed. Please drink some water. Please do not call Raymond. Raymond's phone is going to ring in about 90 minutes, and the people calling him are not the people you want to warn him about. Her face did something then. Just for a second. It cracked. The smooth thing cracked, and underneath I saw, for 1 second, the woman from Bay Ridge. The girl in the rain outside the church in 1984. The girl who had laughed because the photographer had forgotten the umbrellas. She was still in there. Way down at the bottom. The way certain children are still inside the adults who used to be them, even after everything. I almost reached for her. I did not reach for her. That, more than anything else, is the thing I have had to live with. I set the coffee cup on the counter. I turned around. I walked through the kitchen, down the hallway, past the photograph on the mantel from 1989, out the front door, down the front steps, across the gravel that crunched under my shoes the way it had crunched under my shoes for 16 years. David was waiting in the back of the car. He did not say anything when I got in. He looked at my face once, and then he looked away, the way a friend looks away when he sees a thing he does not need to comment on. The car pulled out through the gate. The gate closed behind us. If you've made it this far with me, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel and walk with us, day by day. Because here is the thing I want to say to you, whoever you are, watching this on some Tuesday afternoon in the kitchen, or in the den, or in the car in the parking lot of the supermarket because you cannot quite face going inside yet. Most of us are not going to find out about our wives the way I found out about mine. Most of us are not going to have a 10-year-old girl tug our sleeve in a jewelry store on Fifth Avenue. Most of us are going to die without ever knowing the small lies and the medium lies and the structural lies that have held our lives in shape. And that is a mercy. It is. I want you to hear me say that. It is a mercy. But for some of us, the sleeve gets tugged. And when it gets tugged, you have a choice. You can pretend you did not feel it. You can keep walking. You can keep signing. You can keep living inside the building, on the foundation that isn't there, and you can die one day in a bedroom you decorated together, and the people at your funeral can say what a beautiful long marriage they had, and they can mean it, because from the outside it will have been true. Or you can turn around. And you can kneel down. And you can ask the child to show you. That is the choice. That is the whole thing. That is what I want to leave you with this morning. Stay with me. There is one more part of this. The hardest part. The part about Michael. The part about what a father says to a son when the son has been carrying his father's life on his back for 11 months without telling him. I will tell you about that next. But first, the car drove down the long road past the country club, past the stone walls, past the houses sitting back from the road behind their hedges. The sun was just up. The trees had decided to burn. And in the back of a black sedan, David Marsh handed me his handkerchief again. The same one. This time, I used it. Michael came to David's office at 11 that morning. I had not asked him to come. David had asked him to come. David had called him at 7, before the car had even reached the city, and had said your father is on his way in. There are things he should hear from you and not from me. Be at the office at 11. And Michael had said I'll be there at 10:30. He was there at 10:15. He was 41 years old. My only son. He had my father's shoulders and his mother's eyes and a beard he had been growing for 2 years that I had never told him I liked, because I had grown up in a house where men did not tell their sons they liked their beards, and I had carried that house with me into the next house, and into the house after that, the way men do. He was sitting on the leather couch in David's outer office when I walked in. He stood up when he saw me. We looked at each other. I want to tell you what 41 years of being a father feels like in a single moment in a lawyer's outer office on the 23rd floor of a building on Park Avenue at 10:17 in the morning on a Wednesday in October. It feels like a long hallway with too many doors. Every door is a thing you should have said. A baseball game you missed because of a meeting in Atlanta. A school play you watched from the back row because you had been on a call until 6 minutes before curtain. A graduation where you flew in the night before from Tokyo and fell asleep during the valedictorian speech and pretended later that you had been moved. A wedding where you gave a toast that was about you and not about him, and you did not realize it was about you and not about him until you watched the video 3 years later and saw your son's face while you were talking. Every door. You can see them all from the hallway. You can see them all in the moment your son stands up off the couch. He did not say anything. I did not say anything. He took 2 steps toward me. I took 2 steps toward him. We met in the middle of the rug, the gray rug David had bought in 2003 because his wife had told him it would make the office feel less intimidating, and which had not made the office feel less intimidating because David Marsh would intimidate a room with no rug at all. Michael hugged me. He hugged me the way he had hugged me when he was 7 years old and had fallen off the dock at the lake house and I had pulled him out and held him on the grass while he coughed up water. He hugged me with his whole body. He did not say anything. He just held on. I held him back. I held my son in the outer office of my attorney on Park Avenue and I felt every door in the hallway close behind me, all at once, and I understood that there would not be any more doors. That this was the last one. That the man I had been was on the other side of all those doors, and the man I was going to be from now on was going to have to live with what he had failed to do, and was also going to have to live with this. This. My son. Hugging me. When he stepped back, his face was wet. So was mine. Dad, he said. Michael. I should have told you. No, I should have told you. Michael. Listen to me. Look at me. Listen to me. You did not tell me because I had not built a man you could tell. That is on me. That is not on you. Do you hear me? That is on me. He looked at me. He was a head shorter than me, which had always surprised me, because in my head he was still 6'2" like his grandfather. He had never been 6'2". He had been 5'10" since he was 19. I had not noticed. Dad. Yes. I love you. I had not heard my son say those words to me, out loud, with his face wet, since he was about 11 years old. Maybe 10. There had been a phase. And then there had been a long quiet phase in which he had not said them, and I had not said them, and we had loved each other the way men in my family had loved each other for 4 generations, which was by mowing each other's lawns and changing each other's oil and showing up at hospitals. I love you too, son, I said. I had not said it out loud to him in maybe 30 years. He sat down on the couch. I sat down next to him. David came out of his office. He looked at the two of us. He did not say anything. He went back into his office. He closed the door. Michael and I sat on the couch in the outer office for the next 20 minutes. We did not talk about Margaret. We did not talk about Raymond. We did not talk about the email. We talked about a fishing trip we had taken to Montana in 1994, which Michael remembered better than I did, and we talked about Michael's youngest, who was 6, and who had a thing about dinosaurs that he had inherited from somewhere, and we talked about a small house Michael and Sarah were thinking about buying in Maine, which I had not known about. And then he said, Dad. When this is done. Yes. Come to Maine with us. For a week. In the summer. All right. Just you and me and the kids. Sarah will be there, but Sarah will be reading. The kids want to know you. They love you, but they don't know you. I want them to know you. I had to look at the rug for a long moment before I could answer. All right, I said. All right, son. I will come. David's door opened. Walter Brennan's name appeared on David's phone. The day was beginning. The day had been beginning the whole time. We just had not been looking at it. I want to tell you what happened. But I am not going to tell you in detail. Because I have learned, over the last 3 years, that the details of how a marriage ends are the least important thing about how a marriage ends. The details are for lawyers and for accountants and for the people who write magazine articles. They are not for the man living through it, and they are not for you, watching this on a Tuesday afternoon. Walter Brennan called Margaret at 10 o'clock. She did not pick up. He called again at 10:30. She did not pick up. At 11:15, David called the state police and asked them to do a wellness check on the house in Greenwich. They arrived at 12:04. They found Margaret in the kitchen, fully dressed, in the cream sweater and gray slacks she had been planning to wear to her 70th birthday party. She was sitting at the breakfast nook. She had a small overnight bag at her feet. She had drunk most of a bottle of wine. She was not hurt. She was not in danger. She was just sitting there, waiting, in a house she already knew was not her house anymore. She went with the troopers to a hotel in Stamford. Walter met her there at 3. She signed the document at 5:40. Raymond was arrested in Connecticut 2 days later. He took a deal 6 weeks after that. Charles, the salesman, took a deal of his own. The carrier in Bermuda voided the policy. The asset protection structure in Delaware unwound itself the way these things do when the sunlight finds them. I never saw Margaret again. That is not a moral. That is just a fact. I never saw her again. She moved to Charleston. Her sister lives there. She has a small apartment with a view of the water and a routine and, I am told, a kind of peace that she did not have in our house. I am told she is well. I am told she does not speak of me. I am told that on her 71st birthday, last June, she went to dinner alone at a restaurant by the water and ordered the fish. I hope that is true. I hope she ordered the fish and it was good and she watched the boats and she was, for one evening, the woman I had thought I was married to for 42 years. That is not generosity. That is not forgiveness. I do not know yet what forgiveness is, at 71. I am still working on it. But I hope she ordered the fish. Imani is 19 now. Her mother, Yvette, runs the housekeeping department at a hospital in the Bronx. She makes $91,000 a year. She has health insurance. She has a pension. Her daughter is at Spelman College on a scholarship that does not come from me, although the things around the scholarship, the laptop and the winter coat and the plane ticket home at Christmas, those come from me, because Imani let me give them to her after a long conversation in which she explained, very carefully, the difference between a gift and a debt. She is going to be a doctor. She has not decided what kind of doctor yet. She says she is leaning toward emergency medicine. Her grandmother, she told me once, used to say that the people in the emergency room are the people who finally got someone to look at them. Sometimes that is the whole job, Mr. Henry. Just looking at people. Some people have never been looked at their whole life. I have a photograph of her on the table next to my reading chair. It was taken at her high school graduation. She is in the blue gown. She is holding the diploma. She is not smiling. She is doing the level look. The Beatrice Williams look. The look she gave me in the jewelry store on Fifth Avenue when she was 10 years old and decided to trust an old white man with a checkbook and a wife who was trying to kill him. Next to that photograph there is another photograph. It is from 1989. Newport. The deck of the boat. Michael is 3. Margaret and I are squinting into the sun. I keep them both there. I keep them both there because a man does not get to choose which parts of his life were real. They were all real. The wedding in the rain in Bay Ridge. The 42 years. The email. The cream sweater. The 10-year-old girl with the steady eyes. The son who hugged me in an outer office on Park Avenue. The fishing trip in Montana I had forgotten. The lawn I had never walked on barefoot. All real. All mine. I am going to leave you with one thing. I am 74 years old now. I have 3 years and some months left, if the actuarial tables I used to read are correct about men like me, which they usually are. Maybe more. Maybe less. I have stopped trying to predict it. That was something else I had to give up. In those 3 years, I want to do one thing. I want to be the man who notices. That is the whole thing. That is the whole project of the rest of my life. I want to be the man who notices when his son's voice goes careful on the phone. I want to be the man who notices when the light pools wrong in the corner of the stone. I want to be the man who notices the woman pushing the cart at the grocery store who is $2 short and is doing the math in her head and is about to put back the milk. I want to notice her, and I want to walk over, and I want to hand her a $20 bill, and I want to walk away before she can thank me, because the thanks is not the point. The noticing is the point. A 10-year-old girl tugged my sleeve in a jewelry store and she saved my life. Not because she had any power. She had no power. She was a child whose mother cleaned the floor. She saved my life because she was paying attention, in a room full of adults who had stopped. That is the only thing. That is the only thing I know now that I did not know at 70. Pay attention. Pay attention to the people you love. Pay attention to the small things. Pay attention to the light in the corner of the stone. Pay attention to whether the driver opens the door with his right hand or his left. Pay attention to whether your wife's laugh has changed. Pay attention to whether your son calls your lawyer instead of you. Pay attention to whether the floor at the supermarket has been mopped, and to who mopped it, and to whether her child is sitting on a small chair by the back wall doing her homework while she waits. Pay attention. If I had paid attention 30 years ago, I would have saved a marriage. If I had paid attention 40 years ago, I would have saved myself. I did not. I paid for a lawn instead. But here is the strange thing. Here is the thing I have been turning over in my hands for 3 years and that I want to give to you now, whoever you are, before I let you go. It is not too late. It is not too late at 70. It is not too late at 74. It is not too late at 80. It is not too late tonight. The sleeve can still be tugged. You can still turn around. You can still kneel down. You can still ask the child to show you. That is the whole thing. That is the whole thing I came here to say. If this story stayed with you, if you have been sitting somewhere quiet while you listened, I want to ask you something. I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel if you have not yet, so we can keep walking together. I want to ask you to share this with 5 people you love. Not 5 people you know. 5 people you love. There is a difference. You will know who they are. And I want to ask you to leave a comment, and tell us the name of one person who paid attention to you when nobody else did. Just the name. So we can hold it together for a moment. Next week, I want to tell you the story of a man named Walter Beaumont, who was 81 years old, who had not spoken to his daughter in 26 years, and who got into a taxi in Chicago in February and learned, in a 40-minute ride to O'Hare, what the silence between them had really been about. I think you will want to hear it. Until then. Pay attention. That is the whole thing. Pay attention.